Hello everyone, it's Shannon here for Waffle Flower Crafts. In this video, we're going to do some ink blending to create this really fun Valentine using the new Love Letter Stencil Trio and the Love Letter Combo. Let's start by taking a look at these two new products. First is the Love Letter Stencil Trio set. This set comes with 3 stencils that you can use to add all the different colors and different layers to that beautiful love letter image. Here you can see the love letter image kind of outline. This is part of the Love Letter Combo. You get that stamp set and you get these matching dies in the back. And I also love that big sentiment stamp that cuts out. It creates a bunch of sentiments at once. First, I'm just going to simply stamp that outline image in a black dye ink onto some white cardstock. It doesn't have to be a perfect impression this time. We will stamp it again later, so make sure you leave your stamp in your MISTI. I'm going to start with the first stencil. This stencil matches up perfectly with that stamped image. I'm just going to position it in place, and then I will grab some painter's tape to just kind of hold that stencil in place, and I'll also use that painter's tape to kind of mask off sections. I'm going to mask off these leaves to start because I'm going to ink blend the flowers as well as the nails and the heart first. I'm starting with a really light red. This is Abandoned Coral, and I'm going to ink blend all of the roses, the nails, and if I get a little bit on the heart, that's okay. I'm going to actually make it a little bit darker. Now I'm going back over with that Abandoned Coral and just kind of creating a little gradation, adding a little bit more depth to those images. Now I'm going to tape off the nails and I'm going to start working some darker reds. I have Barn Door picked out. I'm going to just kind of enhance that gradation on those roses. Just a little bit of darker color here really adds a lot of depth. And then I'm going to completely ink blend that heart with that Barn Door, and now I'm moving on to my darker shade, which is Fired Brick, and just ink blend a little gradation at the base so that heart has like a little bit of shape to it. I'm now going to remove my tape and tape off kind of some of the roses so I can ink blend these leaves. I'm simply going to ink blend them with Cracked Pistachio, just get kind of a base coat there. And then I'm going to move on to a darker shade. This is Evergreen Bough, and I'm going to use a little blending brush just because I just want to get a small area. I just want to get the base of the leaves with this darker shade, and that's going to create a nice little gradation on the leaves. They're almost going to look like I Copic colored them, but I just did some really easy ink blending. So now that I've finished, I'm just going to remove my stencil and I'm ready for the stencil number 2. So this second stencil will actually ink blend the base for the hand, the other set of leaves that are on here, as well as the envelope. But not the sections on this stencil are not lined up, so you do have to kind of reposition this stencil for each different area you want to ink blend. So I'm starting with the hand, and I'm going to ink blend this hand with Tattered Rose. Just do a nice light base coat here, and then I'll remove the stencil. Then I will position the leaves. Now this is the other leaves that are in this image. Once I get those in place, I'll then tape it down and also tape off that envelope just so I don't accidentally get some of this green where I don't want it or on that envelope. And I'm going to first ink blend a base here with Mowed Lawn, and then again with Mowed Lawn, I'll just go a little darker to create a little gradation on all of these leaves. Again, that adds a lot of shape. So now I'm going to remove that stencil. I'm actually done with that and move on to my third and final stencil. And I did decide not to ink blend the envelope on the second stencil or on this third stencil here. So this third stencil is the same way. It has different, well, this is kind of the detail layer for lots of different images. We have roses. I'm pointing to the hand right now. There was the envelope, and these are a detail layer for those leaves. And again, you have to, they're not in alignment, so you do have to kind of, for whatever set of images you're ink blending, you're going to have to reposition this third stencil. I'm starting with the roses, so I positioned the detail layer for them, and then again I taped it in place and then taped off areas so I don't accidentally get some of this red where I don't want it. I'm going to start with Barn Door, which was kind of my medium shade I used before, and I'm just going to kind of lay a base coat down or base color down here for the detail layer. So once I get that Barn Door nice and ink blended in those openings, I'm going to move on to my darker shade, my final shade, which is Fired Brick, and just add a little bit of that to create a gradation over those detail layers that detail layer for the roses. Now I'm going to remove the stencil and position the detail layer for the hand here. Again, tape it in place and mask off any openings so I don't get this color where I don't want it. And I'm going back to Tattered Rose, and I'm just going to ink blend this now a little bit more heavy-handed, and that's going to create a nice shadow on that hand. My last kind of ink blending here are these leaves, the detail layer for these leaves. You can see here, it only leaf kind of openings only cover these upper leaves here. I'm starting with pine needles first, ink blend that, and then I will move to Mowed Lawn to ink blend, just to kind of make that more of a gradation. It was just a little too stark, I felt like, with the pine needles. Now I'm going to remove the stencil and position it over that little bit, those two little leaves at the lower right here. I just grabbed kind of one of the other detail layers for the two leaves. You can see here I have to kind of modify and tape off that little bit where it overlaps the envelope, and now I'm going to ink blend it the same way, starting with some pine needles and a little bit of Mowed Lawn. And once I finish with that, all my ink blending is done. Again, there's a detail layer for the envelope, which I chose not to do. I've just left the envelope nice and white. So I'm now going to stamp that outline one more time. So this is where it really starts to clean it up and make it look really pretty. I'm going to stamp it this time in VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which is a pigment ink. I didn't stamp it in this pigment ink to start with because it can kind of catch on your blending tool when you're blending and kind of smear a little bit. So that's why I started with dye ink. And then I went ahead and die cut it out with the matching dye. We're now going to move on to stamping our sentiments. So I have this awesome sentiment stamp here, positioned in my MISTI. I'm going to ink it up with VersaFine Onyx Black ink and stamp it. And then you'll see that this one stamp stamps a whole bunch of sentiments, and now all we have to do is die cut them out. So we're just going to use this matching die, again included in the love letter combo. Just position it and then use a couple pieces of tape to kind of hold that die in place. Then I'll run it through my die cutting machine, and then I will have quickly stamped and die cut out a whole bunch of these beautiful sentiment strips. So since we have our sentiment done and ready to go, it's time to wrap this card up. I'm going to start by adhering this really light A2 panel of light pink cardstock onto the front of an A2 top folding white card base. Once I get that in place, I'll then add my image. I did add foam tape to the back side, and I just removed the backing. Now I'm going to center it here and place it down. Then I'm going to grab my sentiment strip, which I also added foam tape to the back, remove the backing, and stick that down, and my card is complete. And I'll hold it up to the camera so you get a good look at all the details in this card. I really love this love letter image. It's so pretty, and the stencils just make it super easy to color the different sections and to add details as well. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you have any questions about the products I use, please head over to Waffle Flower, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.